the structure is full of too many dimensional analogs of local celestial space, and that this implies that it has some machine-like purpose. And when you look carefully at various features of the structure, including the use of nonlinear materials, stone, limestone, granite, when you look at the dimensional analogs themselves, it's implying a physics that is extraordinarily sophisticated. The Nazi series is long precisely because it's a huge story. Actually, the first book is Reich of the Black Sun, and that book is more or less about two different things altogether. It's about the German atomic bomb and why I think that they may have been much further along than the post-war Allied legend has it. And the reason I started there is because it provides the context in which to look at all of their other exotic technologies and what they were really up to. That when you look at alchemical texts, most of them exist from the High Middle Ages on into the early Renaissance. There's a few that are much earlier than that, but most of them exist in that time frame. And all of them, without question, make the assertion that this was successfully done. Now, that raises a simple philosophical question that historians of science don't like to deal with, and that is that if you have repeated claims over the centuries for success, then you have to either acknowledge, number one, that they actually did what they claimed they were doing, or number two, you have to explain it away. And the way that they've classically done this is to point out that there's the possibility and probability in many cases of a hoax, and I don't deny that. What I'm suggesting in the book is that you are dealing with an extraterritorial continuance of Nazism after the war in an organized, well-financed fashion that is able to continue conducting its own independent research. And I'm suggesting something else is very, very relevant to modern times, and that is that the Nazis were quite well interlocked with various radical Islamic organizations during and, moreover, after the war. That you cannot dismiss too quickly any claim of fringe, so-called fringe areas of science. And you cannot dismiss too quickly stories that sound too radical to be true, like the Philadelphia experiment. Again, in that book, what I tried to do was to show that you can go and find modern engineering papers, physics papers, and so on, that deal precisely with these topics. And in fact, in the case of the Philadelphia experiment, you can go to one of Einstein's colleagues, a fellow by the name of Arnold Sommerfeld, all right? Sommerfeld published theories about how it would be possible to cloak things, basically create radar stealth, all right, by changing the incidences of refraction. Babylon's Banksters does not take the tack that the Rockefellers, the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, and so on are parts of some big international banking conspiracy. That said, it does take the view that in ancient times there was some sort of international, borrowing the term from David Assel, there was some sort of bullion brokering class that was on both sides of the scheme, east and west, and manipulating things even in ancient times. It's the book that ufology loves to ignore, because what I attempt to do in the book is to take the whole Roswell story apart, layer by layer, all right? And the problem with the Roswell story was and remains that in its very earliest articulations, there was no talk whatsoever of recovered or injured bodies, all right? That emerged decades later. The original story was about the recovery of debris with peculiar properties. I started out that book with the thesis that the Genome Project was looking for some sort of confirmation of ancient myths and their claims that humanity was genetically engineered. I didn't find that, so I changed the book slightly in the approach to it. I begin the book with two Germans that made astonishing claims. The grid of the gods. Do I believe in the system of ley lines where you can plug your iPad into the ground and get, no. No. Do I believe there's a grid? Yes. What is the grid? All right. Let's do a basic little experiment that Buckminster Fuller actually did. He took balloons, he filled them with air, he coated the cover, the surface of the balloon with paint, and then he submerged it in water and bombarded the balloon with ultrasound. And what he noticed emerging on the surface of the balloon as the sound waves interfered with each other on the surface of the balloon submerged in the water was that the paint would congeal and create lines of force with nodal points, okay? That's what I think the grid is. My approach with this book is integrative. It's synthetic. It's an attempt to take most of the main conspiracy theories that are out there. The Cubans did it. The Mafia did it. The CIA did it. The Secret Service did it. Lyndon Baines Johnson did it. The Texas oil men did it. The Nazis did it. That's one unusual feature of the book right there, in that I do talk about that aspect of things, integrating it into the others.